Have you ever wondered why, despite giving so much in your relationships, you still feel empty? Why it seems that the more you give to others, the less you receive in return? Today we're going to explore a truth that few dare to face. What it means to love from a place of scarcity, and how this way of relating is draining your vital energy without you even realizing it. Carl Jung, one of history's most brilliant psychologists, discovered something fascinating about our relationships. Something that, once you understand it, will forever change the way you relate to others and, most importantly, to yourself. But before we continue, let me give you a warning. What I'm going to share with you today might shake the foundations of your beliefs. It might make you question decisions you've made for years. And above all, it could be the beginning of the most profound transformation of your life. Loving from scarcity isn't simply a self-esteem problem. It goes much deeper. It's a condition rooted in the depths of our unconscious, in those parts of ourselves that Jung called the shadow. Those parts we've repressed, ignored, or even denied because facing them is too painful. Have you ever found yourself giving everything in a relationship, trying your hardest, only to feel that it's never enough? Have you felt that anguish in your chest when you fear the other person might leave you if you don't meet their expectations? If so, you're experiencing what it means to love from scarcity. Jung understood that this pattern doesn't come from nowhere. It forms in our early years, through experiences where we learned that our value was conditional on meeting external expectations. Maybe you had parents who only showed you affection when you got good grades, or perhaps you grew up in an environment where love always seemed scarce, something you had to compete for. These early experiences create what Jung called complexes, emotional and psychological patterns that influence our adult behavior without us being aware of it. And one of the most destructive complexes is precisely the one that leads us to love from scarcity. When you love from scarcity, you're operating from the unconscious belief that there isn't enough love for you, that you must earn it, that you aren't inherently worthy of being loved just for existing. And this belief leads to behavioral patterns that, ironically, confirm your deepest fear. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you ignored your own needs to satisfy someone else's? How many times have you said yes when you really wanted to say no? How many times have you tolerated behaviors that hurt you because you fear being alone? Every time you do this, every time you abandon yourself to please others, you're reinforcing that message in your unconscious: I'm not enough. I don't deserve love unless I earn it. Jung warned us about the dangers of ignoring these dynamics. He said that what we deny doesn't disappear. It simply sinks deeper into our unconscious and emerges in more destructive ways. When we ignore our own needs for too long, the unconscious finds ways to make itself heard, through anxiety, depression, psychosomatic illnesses, or emotional outbursts that seem to come out of nowhere. And here's the most painful irony. The more you try to fill your emptiness through external validation, the emptier you feel. Because no amount of external love can compensate for the lack of self-love. It's like trying to fill a container with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much you pour in, it will never be enough. Jung understood that true transformation only occurs when we dare to look at those parts of ourselves that we've rejected. When we dare to ask, why do I allow myself to be treated this way? Why do I feel I must earn love? What old wound am I trying to heal through this relationship? These questions lead us to the unexplored territory of our shadow, that psychic space where our deepest fears, insecurities, and unhealed wounds reside. And although facing the shadow can be terrifying, Jung assured us that it is precisely in this confrontation where we find our greatest strength. Because what you discover when you dare to look at your shadow is that everything you've been seeking outside, validation, security, love, can only truly be found within yourself. You discover that you are complete, that you always have been, and that you don't need to earn anyone's love. This doesn't mean you should isolate yourself or give up on relationships. On the contrary, it means you can enter into them from a place of fullness, not lack, from a place of conscious choice, not desperate need. But what does this look like in practice? How do we move from loving from scarcity to loving from abundance? The first step, according to Jung, is awareness. You can't transform what you don't recognize. You need to be willing to honestly observe your patterns in relationships. Are you afraid of being alone? Do you feel responsible for others' happiness? Do you find it difficult to set boundaries? These are signs that you're operating from scarcity. The second step is acceptance. You can't reject parts of yourself and expect to feel whole. You need to embrace even those parts that shame or frighten you. That need for approval, that fear of abandonment, that tendency to please. All of that is part of you, and all of it deserves to be seen and accepted. The third step is integration. It's not about eliminating those problematic parts, but about consciously and compassionately integrating them into your being. Jung called this process individuation, the path toward psychic wholeness, where all parts of your being, light and shadow, coexist in harmony. Think about how everything changes when you begin to relate from this place. You're no longer with someone because you fear being alone, but because you choose to be with that person. You no longer give yourself completely while forgetting yourself, but offer what you can authentically give, respecting your own boundaries. You no longer expect the other person to fill your voids because you've learned to nourish yourself. But let's be honest, this path isn't easy. The pattern of loving from scarcity can be so deeply rooted that it feels like your identity. Abandoning it can generate resistance, fear, and even a sense of loss. If I'm no longer the person who sacrifices for everyone, who am I? Jung understood this resistance. He knew that the ego, that part of us that clings to the familiar even if it's painful, would fight against change. That's why he emphasized the importance of patience and self-compassion in this process. Don't expect to transform lifelong patterns in a day or a week. Allow yourself to make mistakes, to fall back into old habits, and to learn from each stumble. Remember that you're not fixing something that's broken. You're discovering who you really are beneath all those layers of conditioning. One of the most powerful tools Jung offered us for this journey is attention to dreams. He considered dreams to be direct messages from the unconscious, revelations of those parts of ourselves that we haven't yet consciously recognized. If you're in a pattern of loving from scarcity, your dreams might reflect themes of loss, pursuit, or powerlessness. Paying attention to these messages can give you valuable clues about which aspects of your shadow need to be integrated. Another fundamental tool is observing your intense emotional reactions. Jung pointed out that when we react disproportionately to something, with excessive anger, overwhelming sadness, or paralyzing anxiety, we're generally experiencing what he called a projection. We're seeing in the other person something we don't want to recognize in ourselves. For example, if you find yourself furious because someone set a boundary with you, ask yourself, what part of me is afraid of setting boundaries? What belief do I have about what would happen if I set them too? These explorations can be uncomfortable, but they're the path to a freedom you may never have experienced. The freedom to be authentically you, without apologies or explanations. And here's something Jung understood deeply. When you begin to love yourself, not from a place of narcissism or selfishness, but from a genuine recognition of your inherent worth, your entire world changes. People who drained your energy begin to drift away. Situations that kept you trapped dissolve, and you begin to attract relationships that reflect this new level of self-respect. It's as if the universe responds to your internal decision to not settle for less than you deserve. But this isn't magic or mysticism. It's the natural result of a change in your energy and conscious choices. When you no longer operate from scarcity, when you no longer see love as something you must beg for or earn, you become magnetic. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you're fully inhabiting your authenticity. And authenticity has a power of attraction that no mask or strategy can match. Think about the people you admire most. They're probably not those who are constantly trying to please or impress, but those who stay true to themselves, who establish healthy boundaries, and who treat themselves with the same respect they offer others. That's what Jung wanted for all of us. Not a life of constant people-pleasing and self-sacrifice, but a life of authenticity, integrity, and self-love. A life where our relationships arise from abundance, not lack. But here comes the hardest part of this message. No one else can do this work for you. You can read all the self-help books in the world, attend all the workshops and retreats, follow all the Instagram accounts about self-love. But at the end of the day, it's you who must make the decision to choose yourself, again and again, especially when it's difficult, especially when everything in you wants to return to the old patterns of pleasing and self-sacrifice. It's in those moments, when you find yourself about to abandon yourself to keep someone in your life, when you're about to cross your own boundaries to avoid conflict, when your transformation is truly forged. Because every time you choose to honor yourself, every time you treat yourself with the love and respect you deserve, you're rewriting that old story of scarcity. Jung understood that this kind of transformation isn't a one-time event, but an ongoing process. You don't reach a point where you can say, "That's it, I've completely overcome my tendency to love from scarcity." It's more like a muscle that you strengthen with daily practice. And just like with any training, there will be days when you feel strong and others when it seems you've lost all your progress. On those difficult days, remember Jung's words, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Your past may have planted the seeds of scarcity in your heart, but your present, every decision you make, every boundary you set, every time you choose yourself, is planting the seeds of abundance. And what happens when you begin to love from abundance? You experience one of life's most beautiful paradoxes. The less you need others' love to feel complete, the more authentic love you're able to receive and give. You're no longer trying to fill a void. You're no longer using relationships as a mirror to validate your worth. You're present, full and complete in yourself. And from that place, you can offer a love that asks for nothing in return. A love that doesn't exhaust itself because it doesn't come from an empty well that needs to be constantly refilled, but from an abundant source that flows naturally. This is the kind of love that transforms, not just you, but everyone around you. Because when you refuse to participate in dynamics of scarcity, when you refuse to relate from fear and lack, you're creating a new pattern. You're showing others that there's another way to love and be loved. And in a world where so many of us have grown up with models of conditional love, with the belief that we must earn affection and approval, this act, the simple act of loving yourself unconditionally, is revolutionary. As Jung said, the meeting with oneself is one of the most unpleasant experiences, but it is the most necessary. Unpleasant because it forces us to confront truths we've been avoiding. Necessary because only through this meeting can we discover our true essence, that part of us that is infinitely worthy of love just for existing. So today I invite you to consider, from what place are you loving? From scarcity or from abundance? Are you in relationships because you fear being alone or because you genuinely choose to be there? Are you giving from emptiness or from fullness? There are no right or wrong answers here, just the opportunity to observe with honesty and compassion. Because, as Jung taught us, awareness is the first step toward transformation. And if you discover that you've been loving from scarcity, don't judge yourself. It's not your fault. It's simply the result of old wounds, learned patterns, survival mechanisms that were once necessary but now limit you. What matters is not where you come from, but where you choose to go from now on. And each day, each moment, you have the opportunity to choose again, to break the cycle of scarcity, to remember that you are complete, that you always have been, and that you deserve relationships that reflect that truth. Remember Jung's words, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. It's time to awaken. To stop looking outside for what can only be found within. To recognize that the most important love you will ever receive is the one you give yourself. Because in the end, as Jung understood so deeply, it's not about finding someone who completes you. It's about recognizing that you are already complete. And from that completeness, from that internal abundance, you can create relationships that don't drain you but nourish you, that don't limit you but expand you, that don't diminish you but celebrate who you truly are. This is the gift you deserve, and only you can give it to yourself. Now, before ending this video, I want to ask you something important. If this message has resonated with you, if you've recognized patterns of scarcity in your own way of loving, share this video with someone you think might benefit from hearing it. Because there are too many people out there suffering in silence, trapped in relationships that drain their vital energy, without understanding why. And if you yourself are struggling with these patterns, I want you to know that you're not alone. That this is a path many of us are walking together. That each step, however small, toward choosing yourself is an act of courage that deserves to be celebrated. Let me know in the comments which part of this message has touched your heart. Share your experience, your reflections, your questions. This channel is a safe space to explore these truths together, to support each other on our path towards self-love and authentic relationships. And if you haven't already, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos where we'll continue to delve into Carl Jung's teachings and how to apply them to transform our inner life and our relationships. Remember, change begins with you, with your decision to not settle for less than you deserve, with your commitment to choose yourself again and again until it becomes your new nature. As Jung said, "I cannot change what I don't accept." Today is the day to accept where you've been, honor the path that has brought you here, and consciously choose where you want to go. Your future, your relationships, your ability to love from abundance instead of scarcity. It all begins with this simple but profound decision, the decision to see your own worth, not as something you must earn, but as something you already possess, simply because you exist. Thank you for being here, for listening, and above all, for having the courage to look within. See you in the next video. Until then.